Unlike Marvel, DC hasn't really had the best time at the movies in the last 20-ish years, attempting but never really succeeding at getting a cinematic universe off the ground. In the past, I made a video looking at what the DCEU would look like if it was structured like the Infinity Saga, thus making it way better. However, even that wasn't perfect. For one, it was mostly based off of the DCEU, which had a lot more issues than just its structure. But also, it's modeled after a saga, the Infinity Saga, which isn't actually built for a complete comic book universe. What we got out of that was a saga that really only had like one Flash movie, no Green Lantern movies, no Teen Titans, Green Arrow kind of just placed in at the end, not getting a movie, and generally more limited than I'd like the DC universe to be. So in this video and in 2 follow-ups, I'll be detailing what could have been the absolute perfect DC cinematic universe, at least from my perspective. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to help me get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and let's begin. The reason this will be broken up into multiple parts is because there's a lot more specifics I need to delve into than the normal universe restructuring video. The movie's titles and stories are going to be either completely original or mixes of a few different projects. The castings will be from all across DC live action media, keeping in mind the ages of the actors in the year we will be in at that point. Basically, nothing about anything in this world will be consistent with any real world franchise, so explaining everything will take a little bit longer. This DC universe, which I will call the DC movie universe or the DCMU, begins in 2008, but even before that, things will be different. Everything released in the 20th century was released in this world, but as the turn of the century came about, things went a bit differently. Nothing live action that was released by DC in the 21st century, including both movies and TV shows, exists in this world, unless I specifically point out that it does. There's no Dark Knight trilogy, no Arrowverse, no DCEU, no Elseworlds, just one universe that every live action project takes place in. Also, if there's ever a movie that has a similar plot to an animated movie, then that animated movie also did not exist. Just so that live action movie doesn't come off as derivative, but every other animated project will exist. Instead of phases, there will be chapters. Chapter 1 of the first saga, which won't be getting a name yet, will begin in 2008, with 3 back-to-back releases featuring the first 3 Justice League founders to get live action movies: Superman, Batman, and Green Lantern. I know it would have made sense for it to be the Trinity, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but the actress who's going to be playing Wonder Woman in this universe would have been too young in 2008, and also Green Lantern did get a movie before Wonder Woman, so I think this is fine. The first of these will be a movie called The Batman, a movie that is sort of a combination of all the live-action Batman franchises of the 21st century. As you can already tell, it has the title of the Batman and also the costume of the Dark Knight, but it goes beyond that. There are a few options for who can play Batman, even in 2008. Robert Pattinson was definitely too young at the time, and none of the TV actors are good fits either because of age, not fitting the role at all, or simply not proving themselves to have star power. This leaves the only 2 options as Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, both really great actors with their strengths. But honestly, I don't think Bale would ever sign on to an entire cinematic universe, and Affleck fits the more fantastical type of Batman we need for a DC universe. Also, him starting at 35 rather than 43 gives him far more time as a bit of a younger Batman. As for the rest of the cast, Anne Hathaway plays Catwoman, Jeremy Irons plays Alfred, Gary Oldman plays James Gordon, and Morgan Freeman plays Lucius Fox. Like the real The Batman, this movie will skip Batman's origin and place us in year 2 as Batman transitions from more realistic mobsters to theatrical supervillains, while the story is very similar to that of The Dark Knight, including Harvey Dent, played by Aaron Eckhart, becoming Two-Face due to the actions of the Joker, who would be played by Heath Ledger, but will appear again in this universe, and then he will be recast. There are many other big differences as well. I'd prefer for it to be directed by Matt Reeves instead of Christopher Nolan, so it's not too realistic. Gotham looks like how it does in The Batman. Batman does not become a public enemy in the end, and also Rachel Dawes just doesn't exist. She's replaced partially by Harvey's wife Gilda Dent, but also as Batman's love interest, she's replaced by Catwoman. Two-Face does still die here because I think his story peaks in his origin anyway. Batman will wear the Dark Knight suit to start off, but it will change over time. Affleck plays him, but characterization-wise, he's very different. His Bruce is more like Bale's, and this Batman absolutely does not kill and never will. Superman, Man of Steel will also be a bit of a mix between a few different Superman franchises. There are quite a few options for who could play Superman. Tyler Hoechlin would have been a bit too young at the time, and David Corenswet would have been way too young, but Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh, and even Tom Welling are all options. Honestly though, there is a clear choice here for me, and that's Brandon Routh, who unlike Cavill, who would have fit better as Batman, just has that Superman aura to him. The rest of the cast actually comes mostly from Smallville, including Erica Durance's Lois Lane, Michael Irons side as Sam Lane, Aaron Ashmore as Jimmy Olsen, John Schneider as Jonathan Kent, and Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent, and a few from the DCEU like Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, and Ayala Zur as Lara Lor-Van. Aside from Routh, the only other thing I take from Superman Returns is the costume, which will also change over time. This Superman will be characterized the same as Tyler Hoechlin's, meaning Clark Kent is who he really is, while Superman is somehow both a friendly face and at times an imposing figure. Lois also falls in love with Clark rather than Superman because I just prefer that so much more. As for the story, it will be very similar to Man of Steel, although with a completely different tone, including being an origin story flashing back here and there to when Clark was a kid, and with Zod being the villain. But obviously this is not Man of Steel, it's not directed by Zack Snyder, he will have no part in this universe, but rather Joe Johnston. Everyone is characterized better, Clark and Lois have chemistry, the movie is more vibrant, Clark goes to work at the Daily Planet right at the beginning, the fights between Superman and Zod cause minimal damage, and Superman does not kill Zod, instead he banishes him to the Phantom Zone. As for Green Lantern, we literally do not have any other options. Only one actor has ever played Hal Jordan in live action, Ryan Reynolds. We could go for Kyle Chandler, who will play Hal in the DCU, but he was 43 in 2008, too old for a version of Hal who was just starting off. Honestly though, I think if the movie was better written and didn't look so gross, Ryan Reynolds would have been considered good casting, so we'll be taking Green Lantern back 3 years and somehow making it a lot better than it is. The rest of the cast is the same as the movie as well. I don't see any reason to change any of them. Green Lantern will be directed by Joseph Kosinski and will be an origin story based on Green Lantern's Secret Origin, which also came out in 2008. Jeff Johns simply would have written it for a movie rather than a comic, and it wouldn't be quite as obviously setting up Blackest Night. Hal's father dies in a plane crash when he's a kid. He grows up and is forbidden to become a pilot by his mother, but he joins the Air Force at 18. His mother refuses to talk to him because of it, and then dies of cancer before they can reconcile. Hal gets dishonorably discharged after hitting a superior officer, but gets hired at Ferris Air as a test pilot. He and Carol Ferris become romantically involved right before Abin Sur comes crashing to Earth and then gives his ring to Hal. It turns out Abin Sur was attacked by someone named Atrocitus, who hates the Guardians for the destruction of his sector by their first attempt at peacekeepers, the Manhunters. So there's a lot of lore being explored here at this point through the perspective of Hal Jordan, who's being taught all of it. Atrocitus follows Abin Sur's trail and attacks Hal, but he's saved by the Green Lantern of the neighboring sector, 2813, Tomar Ray. Tomar and Hal defeat Atrocitus, Tomar takes him prisoner and brings both he and Hal to Oa. Atrocitus purposefully left behind and hid a powerful weapon called the Cosmic Divining Rod. Hal then arrives on Oa, is explained everything he needs to know about the Corps, and he's trained by Kilowog and Sinestro. Back on Earth, the Cosmic Rod is found by William Hand, played by Iwan Rion, a psychopath obsessed with death who is able to unleash the Rod's full power, which Atrocitus wasn't, and uses it to unleash his greatest fantasies, going on a killing spree that starts with his family. Meanwhile, Hal proves to be a quick study and a natural. He finishes his training and soon enough is sent back to Earth to operate as the Green Lantern of Sector 2814, but is also joined by Sinestro for a day or two as a sort of supervision. Hal reunites with Carol, who thought he had died, so there's some trauma there. Sinestro does freak people out, but this part of the movie takes place after Superman, so people do know about aliens now. Hal and Sinestro team up against Black Hand, who proves to be powerful enough to face them both. Hal proves himself by defeating Black Hand, ending in William's death, and Sinestro leaving Sector 2814 in the capable hands of Hal Jordan. A post-credit scene shows Sinestro returning to his world, revealed to be completely under his rule. 2009 sees the release of Aquaman, which will be a one-off and just about the exact same as the real Aquaman, including James Wan directing, except Jason Momoa and by extension Arthur Curry are 9 years younger and the Justice League do not exist. Mera is played by Elena Satine, who played her on Smallville, just so we could avoid any controversy. The rest of the cast is the same. There are a few characters in this movie who at this point in time did not exist yet in the comics, like Stephen Shin and Nereus, so they would just be cut out, but I think that's perfectly fine. Ocean Master is the villain and Black Manta is the secondary main villain, but there won't be another Aquaman movie. However, Black Manta will definitely return. 2010 is the year of the Trinity, starting off with a shared sequel between the Batman and Superman the Man of Steel called Batman and Superman World's Finest, which would be directed by by Brad Bird. Since the events of those two movies, which was 2 years ago, Clark and Lois have gotten very serious and Clark is preparing to propose. He's also gotten a brighter suit and become good friends with Jimmy Olsen. The movie actually starts off with him revealing his identity to Jimmy. On the other hand, since those events, the government, specifically Sam Lane and Amanda Waller, have grown afraid of aliens and has contracted a few companies to build anti-Superman weapons. Chief among them is LexCorp. Lex Luthor is played by Michael Rosenbaum and builds a line of super suits that are meant to combat Superman. Secretly, however, Lex has used the bulk of the resources to clone Superman, successfully doing so. Around the same time, many mysterious murders prop up in Metropolis that seem impossible. Some witnesses claim that they were done by Superman, which is something that gets the attention of the owner of another one of those companies approached for that contract, but ultimately they denied it, which is Bruce Wayne. In the 2 years since the Batman has upgraded his suit and has faced off against a few iconic villains off screen like Mad Hatter, Mr. Zsasz, Calendar Man, and Firefly, but so far no one is superhuman. Metahumans in general will only be introduced in just a bit. Batman's investigation of LexCorp leads him to Metropolis where he meets Superman. They fight for like a minute, but Batman is clearly outmatched and only is able to stop the fight by calling Superman Clark. Superman then uses his X-ray vision to find out that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Batman investigated Superman separately and concluded that he could not have killed those people, while Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen separately also investigate these murders. Unbeknownst to them, Batman and Superman are doing the same, along the way bouncing off each other's drastically different personalities and approaches, by the end learning to respect the other and even learn to apply some of each other's methods to their own heroics. It turns out that Lex's plan all along was to frame Superman, sending the clone he created to kill an innocent person in front of witnesses before flying away, doing so fast enough that people can't see his slightly deformed face. At one point, Superman and Batman are led into a trap by Lex where they're seen with a lot of evidence and then framed for the murders, making them both fugitives of the law. The government pours even more money into LexCorp, which was a part of its plan, and he uses it to complete the exosuit drones. Lois and Jimmy eventually manage to uncover exonerating evidence, which also shows Lex's guilt, but until then, Superman and Batman are on the run from Lex and his army of drones. While Batman breaks into LexCorp, Superman approaches Lex, which is when he reveals that he didn't do any of this for the money, but rather to turn public perception against Superman because he hates him. Batman breaks into LexCorp to destroy all the exosuits, but instead he finds the clone, who turns out to be mentally handicapped and deformed. Bizarro attacks Batman, who just does his best to get away, while Lex attacks Superman with an army of exosuit drones, as well as one suit that he wears for himself. Before Bizarro can kill Batman, Batman luckily manages to find out Bizarro's shtick, that everything is backwards, which he uses to convince Bizarro that they are enemies, that Superman is also his enemy, and that Lex Luthor is his best friend. So Bizarro leaves Batman alone to go after Lex, while Superman and Batman team up to destroy the drones. Bizarro is about to kill Lex, but is stopped by Superman. It turns out Bizarro has been degrading mentally over time, but after these few turns of events, he degrades to a mindless monster who just fights Superman. Batman knocks out Lex and disables his suit, so he's taken out of the equation. Jimmy captures the Superman versus Bizarro fight on camera, which causes a bit more property damage. Batman tells Clark from afar that Bizarro is his opposite, so Superman takes this to mean that he'd be depowered by the yellow sun. To combat this, Lex gave him a red sun core inside of Bizarro's chest. Superman sees this, pulls this out, and depowers Bizarro. Bizarro then dies in Superman's arms, as his powers were the only thing keeping him alive. Lex is arrested, Superman is exonerated, Clark proposes to Lois and she says yes, and he invites Bruce to the wedding, but Bruce obviously declines. Back in the darkness of Gotham City, and in reaction to Clark and Lois getting engaged, Bruce is kinda hit by a wave of loneliness, and decides to go on a date with a woman who gave him her number recently. He calls a woman named Julie Madison, who excitingly agrees to the date, and even suggests that they go to this circus that recently came to town. Next up is Wonder Woman, which I waited until now to get around to because before this point, I think Gal Gadot would have been a bit too young, and even now is verging on too young as she's just 25. There are technically other options from canceled projects, but Gal Gadot is perfectly fine in the role. I see no reason to switch her with someone that we don't even know will be good. The rest of the cast remains the same as well, and I would also keep Patty Jenkins as director since she did do a good job, although she's clearly proved that she's not fit for the sequel, so she will will be replaced. This movie coming out in 2010 means that it predates the New 52, and therefore also predates her revamped origin that was adapted into the movie. So this Diana will be indeed made out of clay, bestowed to life by Zeus. Her costume will also have white stars on the skirt. Everything else could be the same, not that I loved all of it, but I mean, not every individual movie in this universe has to be perfect. So Ares is the main villain, and I guess played by the same actor, and Dr. Poison is the secondary main villain. In the end, following World War I and Steve's death, Diana returns to Themyscira with a longing to return to man's world, while the Wonder Woman fades into being a legend, one that will soon be revealed to the world to be very much real. 2011 begins with the release of Green Lantern Emerald Knights. Also directed by Joseph Kosinski, this movie follows up on everything from the first. Since the events of Green Lantern, which was 3 years prior, Hal has spent the majority of his time in space, which has caused his relationship with Carol to become extremely fractured. Hal joins Sinestro to his home planet to help dispel an invasion by Despero, but soon learns that Sinestro has abused his power, having installed himself as supreme ruler of his home planet of Korrigar. They defeat Despero together, but Hal reports Sinestro to the Guardians, who strip him of his ring and banish him to a prison planet called Quard, located in another dimension known as the Antimatter Universe. Hal returns to Earth to repair his relationship with Carol, but even while there, is called away to stop a different villain named Sonar. Sinestro is approached by a mysterious shadowy figure. Far later, it'll be revealed to be the Anti-Monitor, but not for a very long time, who offers to help him get revenge on Hal Jordan and the Guardians of the Universe. The figure offers Sinestro the Weaponers of Quard, who help him create a Yellow Lantern ring powered by fear and to help him escape the Antimatter Universe. Meanwhile, the Guardians choose Sinestro's replacement for Sinestro's Sector in Katma Tui. Using this ring, Sinestro sets out to get revenge on Hal, so he goes to Earth. Hal returns from defeating Sonar to find Carol captured by Sinestro. Sinestro and Hal fight, but Hal's weakness to yellow gets the better of him, and he loses. Sinestro doesn't kill Hal though. Instead, he kidnaps Carol Ferris and then uses her as a hostage, bargaining her life to force Hal to release Parallax from the Central Power Battery on Oa. Parallax is revealed to be the entity of fear imprisoned in the Central Power Battery, which is what gave the Green Lanterns a weakness to yellow, something that is very much focused on in this movie. Hal unleashes Parallax, who in turn possesses him. Parallax attacks the Green Lantern Corps and even kills Tomar Ray. Sinestro takes Carol to Korrigar, where he reinstalls his regime, easily defeating the inexperienced Katma Tui and then imprisoning her. Sinestro leaves for Oa, following which the resistance on Korrigar helps Carol and Katma Tui escape. Sinestro shows up to gloat. Katma Tui brings Carol to Hal Jordan, who manages to get through to him, expelling Parallax from his body. Now without a host, Parallax is defeated by the entire Green Lantern Corps, while Sinestro takes the opportunity to escape. This time Parallax is imprisoned somewhere else, not in the Central Power Battery. On the way back to Earth, Hal and Carol talk about their relationship and are both about to agree to try to make it work, as they are then intercepted by a woman named Miri Riam, who has a pink lantern ring. Carol Ferris is recruited into the Star Sapphires due to that big act of love that expelled Parallax. Both Hal and Carol then acknowledge that this is the end of their relationship. On the theme of love though, two Guardians, Ganthet and Sade, fell in love with each other during this movie, which is strictly forbidden, so as a consequence were kicked out of the Guardians. They set out to form their own corps. Comic readers will know that that will be the Blue Lantern Corps. Batman the Brave and the Bold follows up on World's Finest by introducing Dick Grayson, aka Robin, who is going to be 13 years old in this movie, debuting very young and also young enough so that in the future he could still be a member of the Teen Titans. As for the actor, there's only one true candidate, Brenton Thwaites, but he was 21 in 2011, which is just too old. Instead, I'll be doing something that I'm going to have to do for a lot of the Teen Titans fan casts. Dick will be played by Asa Butterfield, who would have been 13 during the filming of this movie and who was already an active actor during this time. Taking place exactly 1 year after The Night at the Circus, which we see in like a little bit of a montage, the movie begins with Batman being called to the GCPD by the Bat Signal, but arriving with Robin, which shocks Gordon. This is Robin's debut. The case they're given involves a murder with a riddle attached to it. A lot of the story will be similar to the Batman, but slightly less dark, and with a lot of detective scenes being more so focused on Robin, who tries to prove himself to his mentor. Actually, for all intents and purposes, Robin is the main character of this movie. A Along the way, Batman and Robin also cross paths with the Penguin, who has taken over the criminal underworld with a large focus on the corruption within Gotham City, all very much like the Batman. However, a big difference is that the Riddler is played by Corey Michael Smith, like he was on Gotham, while also wearing a more comic-accurate Riddler design. After deciphering riddles here and there which take them place to place and victim to victim, they soon learn that the next victim is going to be someone named Tony Zuko, who Dick learns is the man who killed his parents. Dick, however, proves his virtue by saving Zuko's life anyway. It's also very much focused on throughout the movie, mostly from Alfred's perspective, of how much more accustomed Dick is to this life, how much more well-adjusted he is compared to Batman. The ending of Riddler flooding Gotham also won't happen. The ending will be a lot more low-key. This Riddler will have a more clearly defined ego, as he's extremely proud of his intelligence. Much like in the Arkham games, Riddler reveals he discovered Batman's identity and threatens to tell everyone, but Batman and Robin see this as a bluff, since his ego wouldn't allow himself to turn something only he was able to figure out into public knowledge so that everyone knows. At some point near the end, Robin manages to outsmart Enigma. Exactly how isn't important, but this hits his ego so hard that it drives him mad, having been outsmarted by a 13-year-old boy. Not Batman, but Robin. His ego is shattered and he loses it, turning him into a more classic Riddler, right as he's sent to Arkham. The Flash, directed by Matthew Vaughn, stars Grant Gustin as an admittedly very young Barry Allen. Grant will have been just 20 when he films this movie, but it's not like we have any other better options. John Wesley Shipp is far too old and Ezra Miller is far too terrible, so this world's Barry Allen will simply have to be a young one. The rest of the cast includes Candice Patton as Iris West, Jesse L. Martin as Police Captain Daryl Fry, not Joe West, a character that does not exist, Patrick Sabinoy as Barry's supervisor David Singh, John Wesley Shipp as Henry Allen, and Michelle Harrison as Nora Allen. This movie tells Barry's origin, adapting the, as of that point, very recent comic The Flash Rebirth. In fact, that's one of the reasons, alongside Grant Gustin's age, that we are only now getting around to The Flash. That version of Barry's origin didn't exist until 2009, and they didn't finish revealing everything until January 2010, meaning for this to work, they will have to begin writing the script before that final issue of The Flash Rebirth, and fast-tracked production, all leading to a late 2011 release. And honestly, it's entirely possible, so why not? For maybe a bit of simplification, the story could also be considered a very condensed version of The Flash Season 1, showing a young Barry witnessing his mother's murder at the hands of a speedster in yellow. His father goes to prison for the murder, and Barry dedicates his life to proving his innocence, so he goes into forensic science. Thanks to his genius-level intellect, he managed to graduate high school at 16 and quickly entered a college which he recently graduated from. Now he's a newly employed 20-year-old forensic scientist at the Central City Police Department, where he works alongside his adopted father, Police Captain Daryl Fry. More of the same beats are told from there. The Central City wing of Star Labs' particle accelerator explodes in a thunderstorm, creating a lightning bolt that hits Barry in his lab. This would later be revealed to have been intentionally done by the head of Star Labs, a man named Harrison Wells, who soon revealed to be Eobard Thawne, having killed Nora because he failed to kill the child Barry, and thus being stuck in the past. A lot of elements that are the exact same as The Flash Season 1, others are definitely different. Barry's coma lasts just 1 month, and he tests his powers by himself, being quickly forced into action to save Central City from a group of criminals who got powers themselves, the Rogues. Meanwhile, Cub reporter Iris West investigates Star Labs on the hunch they sabotage the accelerator on purpose. Iris and Barry do not have a past together. During the movie, Barry visits his father in prison, gets his ass kicked by the Rogues, although they don't kill him because of their code, is reminded of the man in yellow when he sees his own reflection running past a lake, which prompts him to investigate Star Labs himself. Meeting Iris along the way, together they question Wells. Then, as Flash and Iris leave Star Labs, they're attacked by another speedster dressed in yellow, who absolutely destroys Barry and then leaves. Iris then finds the beaten Flash and takes him to her house to help him recover. There, she finds out his identity, and they actually also kiss for the first time. Flash then has a rematch with the Rogues. Now, with full determination and a much better understanding of his abilities and more experience, Barry then learns how to phase, using this ability to defeat them, pushing his speed limit in the process, which prompts Thawne to show up again. He beats Barry up yet again, while also taunting him and revealing to him his identity. Then, Thawne leaves. Barry, talking to Iris, comes to realize there was another person that night, the man who saved his life, a speedster wearing red, initially assuming it was a different Flash and he was subconsciously inspired by him. This all leads to a final showdown where Thawne shows up yet again and drags Barry to some random park, then explaining to Barry that this is where Barry took his spotlight, where he exposed him to the world. Thawne unmasks himself to reveal Harrison Wells, explaining he killed Barry's mother as a way to get rid of the Flash after failing to kill the young Barry, which then did cause the Flash of the future to disappear. It's here that Barry learns about the time travel of it all. After all this time, Barry is now fast enough and has generated enough speed force that Thawne could finally kill him and return to his time. They fight and Barry is still outmatched until until finally their fight pushes Barry into the Speed Force, leaving Thawne behind. Seconds later, Barry returns in a new costume and much more power and defeats Thawne, revealing to Thawne that he just returned from the 25th century. We see in a montage that Barry was stuck there. He met the Flash of that time, learned he was faking crimes to be a hero, and exposed him before finding out that he is Eobard Thawne. Barry then manages to time travel back to the present, meaning everything Thawne has done for the past decade was all to lead up to causing his own demise, and that Barry disappeared in the past on purpose. After all this, Central City builds a prison for the metahumans called Iron Heights, where Thawne and the Rogues are held. Then, as thanks to their hero, Central City announces construction on a Flash museum. That brings us to the final year of Chapter 1, 2012, which starts with the movie the chapter was leading up to, Justice League, directed also by Brad Bird, like World's Finest was, and bringing together all the heroes of Chapter 1, while also introducing the Martian Manhunter, adapting the original Justice League founding members lineup. J'onn J'onzz is played by David Harewood, and his origin connects directly to the reason for the Justice League coming together. Like it was in the animated series, Mars is invaded by an army of robots led by Brainiac. Because the robots and the Martians have no mind to read, they were caught completely unawares. Brainiac wipes out the Green Martians and shrinks their biggest city to add to his collection. J'onn J'onzz, however, survives and manages to sneak aboard Brainiac's ship without being noticed, as Brainiac sets his sights on a new target: Earth. This version of Brainiac is played by Blake Ritson, like he was on Krypton, and is an organic being from Kolu who became obsessed with gaining knowledge. Soon, Hal Jordan becomes aware of the attack on Mars, but does arrive too late. Hal attacks Brainiac just outside of Mars's atmosphere, but is entirely overwhelmed. He's joined by the Martian Manhunter, but that still isn't enough. Hal decides to retreat back to Earth, taking J'onn with him. Brainiac is a little bit slower. He'll take a lot longer to get there. First, he asks for backup from the Corps, but none are available. Instead, he decides to recruit the heroes of Earth. While Brainiac sends drones to some of Earth's biggest cities, on Themyscira, Diana gets a vision of man's world, seeing that she is needed in a coming crisis. She leaves paradise once again. In Central City, Flash easily defeats Captain Boomerang before meeting Iris, who he has been dating for a year, who introduces him to her nephew, Wally, played by the at the time 15-year-old KJ Apa. In Metropolis, Clark and Lois are planning their wedding when a Brainiac drone lands in the city center. Superman goes to investigate, but is attacked by the drones. Back in Gotham, Batman and Robin defeat Killer Croc when a drone lands there as well. Unlike Superman, Batman and Robin are completely overwhelmed. That is, until Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter show up to recruit him. Starting with Batman, because of the legends surrounding him, Hal is shocked to find out that Batman is powerless. Hal, J'onn, Batman, and Robin destroy the robots and investigate the drone. Flash sees Superman's fight on the news and shows up to help, helping Superman to destroy all the robots. They then also investigate the drone. A drone also comes from Atlantis as well, also technically one of Earth's biggest cities. The robots are not quite equipped for underwater combat though, so Aquaman and a few other Atlanteans easily defeat them before learning of all the other drones. Aquaman then heads to the surface. While investigating the drones, Superman, Green Lantern, and Batman are all infected with nanotech that infects their minds, taking control of them and turning them against the other heroes. Superman chases the Flash, Hal and J'onn fight, while Robin tries his hardest to fend off Batman. The young and inexperienced Flash is not able to defend himself, but is instead saved by Wonder Woman. Together, Flash and Wonder Woman are very much able to stand up to Superman. Batman, however, manages to break through the programming as he was just about to kill Robin, while Hal's immense willpower is what saves him. Superman, however, was infected with double the nanobots, so he can't quite fight it off. When the heroes who are in Gotham find out about the fight between Flash and Wonder Woman and Superman in Metropolis, they decide to go join, while Robin stays behind in Gotham. J'onn joins the fight, while Batman takes Hal to Lois, bringing her to Superman to get him to break through the programming, which fully works. The heroes then compare notes. Superman, as it turns out, recognizes Brainiac, having learned from his AI father that while Krypton's destruction was inevitable, it was sped up by someone named Brainiac, who shrunk and bottled the city of Condor, which caused the already unstable planet Krypton to explode. Purposefully so, as Brainiac wants to collect all knowledge and make it so that no new knowledge can be created on each planet. With Brainiac on his way, the heroes decide to join forces to stop him. They are soon joined by Aquaman. The heroes decide the best course of action is a preemptive attack attack on Brainiac's ship. The Justice League, as I'll refer to them from now on, fly up to meet Brainiac halfway and infiltrate his ship. This turns out to have been Brainiac's plan all along, as the League are led into a trap. Brainiac let Jean live, and he let Jean aboard his ship, and then also implanted the idea in his mind to bring Earth's heroes to his ship, because he knew a full-on attack on Earth had an unacceptable 15% chance to end in his defeat, because of Earth's many heroes. As the League are trapped, Brainiac's ship finally makes it to Earth, and he unleashes a full-force invasion, targeting Metropolis as the city he plans to shrink. Brainiac failed to account for the magic of Aquaman's trident, which he uses to break them out of their trap. The League head to Metropolis to save the day, while Batman remains on the ship to look for something. Batman finds the bottled city of Kandor and races to get it to Brainiac. Superman takes Brainiac on one-on-one. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Jon Jones fight off an army of drones, while Hal and Barry try to destroy the machine Brainiac put around Metropolis to shrink it. But unfortunately, they all fail. Metropolis gets shrunk down with most of the heroes inside it, which also angers Superman to the point where he pushes his fight with Brainiac too far away from Batman to help, and Brainiac wins the fight, stabbing Superman with a kryptonite dagger. He flaunts Superman's dead body in front of the people of Earth. Brainiac has won. He got Metropolis and now sets out to destroy the rest of Earth, easily hacking into Earth's defenses and unleashing all of Earth's nukes back on Earth. As all hope seems lost, the Flash does something he was not able to do since the events of his movie, time travel, this time doing it a bit differently, rewinding time rather than going back in time. Barry rewinds time to the moment the Justice League came to Earth. Changing things up a bit, he takes temporary command, telling the League they don't need to defeat Brainiac, just distract him, but they're gonna need Superman to destroy the shrinking machine. This time, Superman and Flash go to destroy the machine. Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter fight Brainiac, while Wonder Woman and Aquaman fight the drones. Superman and Flash do destroy the machine and join in on the fight against the drones as well. Brainiac does overwhelm Hal and Jean, but then Batman shows up, releasing an army of tiny Kryptonians from Kandor on Brainiac, who infect him like a disease, destroying him from the inside. The Kandorians, however, are weakened by the kryptonite Brainiac was carrying, so they return to Kandor, now never able to leave again, or they will die. Unfortunately, Brainiac reroutes his consciousness into a clone of himself on a ship, leading into a little bit of a more simple fight. Brainiac and a mostly destroyed army of his drones facing off against these 7 members of the Justice League, complete with a team-up shot. The drones are all destroyed, Brainiac is defeated and captured rather than destroyed to prevent another rerouting. Superman takes the city of Kandor and all other shrunken cities to the Fortress of Solitude and promises to somehow find a way to enlarge them. The Justice League officially form and renovate Brainiac's ship a bit, changing the shape a bit, ridding it of any Brainiac memorabilia, and turning it into a base of operations they call the Watchtower for the newly founded Justice League. Superman and Lois get married, Diana decides to remain in Man's world, living in Washington, DC, and working as the official ambassador to Themyscira. Martian Manhunter finally finds the time to grieve. Hal Jordan tells the Guardians about all the threats Earth has faced lately, convincing them that he could use some backup, and the Guardians agree, explaining that they're going to send a second Lantern Ring to someone in Sector 2814. Flash returns to Central City to find out that Wally is in the hospital, having been hit by a bolt of lightning during the invasion. In the next Flash movie, it's going to be revealed that Barry rewinding time caused a bit of a disturbance in the Speed Force that unleashed a bit of Speed Force energy that was attracted to Iris West due to it being created by Barry, but Wally got in the way and got hit instead. The chapter is not over quite yet. The final movie, acting as a sort of epilogue to the chapter, is Green Arrow. Starring Stephen Amell, Green Arrow focuses entirely on Oliver's origin, setting itself apart from the other movies in this chapter by taking place entirely on an island. Taking main inspiration from Green Arrow Year 1, spoiled trust fund billionaire Oliver Queen's ship capsizes and he washes ashore a deserted island alongside his father. His father, however, soon dies. Oliver struggles to survive, slowly but surely breaking to the point of killing small animals to eat. He eventually decides to make a bow and arrow to use his archery skills he developed as a kid to hunt. Finally venturing out of the little spot in his island he was stuck in, he soon finds out that the island is not quite as deserted as he thought. There's an entire drug operation on this island led by a woman named China White. Oliver then meets a man named Scimitar, who reveals that the drugs made on this island are meant to fund a coup in his homeland of Latava and is led by a man named Count Warner's Idol, or Count Vertigo. Scimitar teaches Oliver how to fight, while Oliver further practices his bow and arrow skills, proving to be an absolute natural. They do this with the goal of taking down the drug operation, except Oliver's real goal is to steal a boat or a plane and simply escape the island, even after Scimitar tells him that Vertigo plans to kill all of the slaves working on the drug operation after they no longer need them. Oliver and Scimitar infiltrate the drug operation, destroying some of it and coming into combat with China White and also Count Vertigo, who prove to be too formidable a threat, as he has Vertigo-inducing powers. They take both of them hostage, but kill Scimitar in front of Oliver, while Oliver they don't kill because they recognize as Oliver Queen, who they take captive with the goal of leveraging his life for more money to fund the coup. They take an unusual direction to keeping him captive, getting him addicted to the heroin they make. While China and Vertigo continue to plan out their next move, Oliver proves to be far more strong-willed than they expected, going through torturous withdrawal to break through the addiction. He puts together what he can to create a camouflage suit, creates a new bow and arrow, and tries again, this time taking a more stealthy approach to things. He kills every henchman, defeats China White in a fight, and finally makes his way to Count Vertigo. Vertigo uses his power against Oliver, but Oliver proves to have developed a resistance after having kicked his addiction. Vertigo offers Oliver a way off the island if he leaves them alone, but Oliver decides to put the lives of the others on the island ahead of his own and kills Vertigo. A few months later, a fishing boat floating near the island sees a big fire. Everyone is rescued, Oliver returns to Star City and reunites with his mother, and decides to do in his city exactly what he did on the island, save innocents from the powerful men exploiting them. Oliver becomes the Green Arrow, starting his career, and this is his first night out, by stopping a mugging by a kid played by the at the time 15-year-old Jake Austin Walker. This kid is Roy Harper. And that is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.